At what point do you say, I'm seeing too many parents over compensating for their children and not allowing them and learn? And we need to have the conversation. When did that happen?
I first noticed it in the late 1990s, frankly. I began publicly speaking about it and writing about it in 2005. My very first op-ed on the subject was for the Chicago Tribune, 2005. And it was entitled, "When Did Caring Become Control?"
Mm.
Blame boomers, I said, is the subheading. When did caring become control? Blame boomers. And I was really diving into the history. When did things change? What we were seeing at the college level in the late 90s, early 2000s was simply the result of a changed childhood. Parents were managing play dates. Parents were showing up on the sidelines of kids' activities, constantly applauding every single tiny thing they did. All of a sudden, kids were getting ribbons and trophies for just playing soccer, not for being
Yep.
any good at it, right? There were all kinds of stranger danger was born. Don't talk to strangers became the mantra millennials grew up with. And then
Mhm.
why should we be surprised that they don't know how to talk to a stranger, advocate for their own needs with a stranger, be respectful? They haven't been taught. They've just been taught to avoid. So
Mm.
childhood chickens were coming home to roost. We were seeing the effects at college. I've been concerned about this issue for a long time. It took me 10 years to go from that op-ed to that book, which came out in 2015 on the subject, where I really dive into what we're doing, what the history of it, why it's problematic for our young people, not just around skills, but around their mental health.
Mm.
If you are overmanaged in life, and overparenting is basically micromanaging your kid, it deprives them of skill development, and it makes them more likely to be anxious and depressed because you are negatively impacting a healthy psychological formation.
Mhm. But here's what I want to really take a deeper dive into, Julie, because a friend of mine and I were having a conversation about this very thing, about not allowing our children to fail. And we see it as a indictment, if you will, on ourselves. If our kids fail to launch, or if somebody else's kids have been admitted into Harvard or into Stanford, and other kids of their same age group are killing it, and ours are still at home, and they didn't get the grades, and they didn't get all of the accolades that you write about in the book that parents want and have an expectation to do. And I said, at some point, we have to allow them to fail, because after all, failure is how we learn. Failure is our teacher, although none of us want to fail. And so I think that this conversation is important, because as we are having it, there are parents that are watching right now that still don't get it. How do we change the mindset of where parents are? And you look no further than the cheating scandal that became national headlines. And it was probably happening even before that. We just didn't know about it. So, how do we
Mhm.
change the ideology?
Well, the first thing I want to say is, when we parents, and I say we because I am a mom and I've got a 21-year-old son and a 19-year-old daughter, and I've made plenty of the mistakes I write about in my book on the harm of overparenting. So I was a dean critiquing it. Turns out I was also a mom embodying it. I live in Silicon
Mm.
Valley, and it's a hotbed of overparenting. And I know, therefore, that we do this. We have this fear of our kids' failure, of my kid not measuring up, my kid isn't getting into the elite schools, my kid's not getting accolades. If we fear it, if we have this sense of judgment, I need them to perform so I can feel better about myself, that speaks to a really empty self. Like, in other words, our child has become the evidence of our worth. So if our child is getting A's, then we're okay. If our child is getting C's, then we're not okay. It is a psychological enmeshment that is quite unhealthy. And I advise any of us who really have that need almost to manage a child like they're a dog. We're putting in a dog show. We're going for best in breed so that we can get the trophy. That's just something we got to work out with our therapist. And I highly recommend that, because Humans come in all different shapes and sizes and abilities. We ought to be delighted in our kid figuring out who they are. Some of them, it's going to take them longer. Some of them are not going to be great at school, K-12, but they're going to find their way in their 20s. They're going to figure it out. It is their life, not ours. And failure, as you've said, is one of life's greatest teachers. And actually in the book, Your Turn, I call failure one of life's beautiful F words, along with floundering, fumbling, flailing, falling, and a final F word, feedback, which is sort of humans telling us, hey, let me tell you how you did or how this went or what you might do differently. Many of us don't want to deal with feedback either. We want to be perfect as we are. This book is turning all of that on its head. Now, you're here to learn and grow. You're going to fail, flounder, fall, etc. People will give you feedback. All of this is in furtherance of your growth. You will get stronger. You will get more resilient. You will get more confident by having these experiences. So we parents have to back off and let life teach our children these lessons. We're supposed to make sure they don't die. Short of that, life has a lot of lessons to teach our kids. And when we intervene in order to make it perfect, make it better, we're depriving them of all of that rich learning.
Let's take a break here. But when we come back, we'll talk more about Your Turn, how to be an adult. It's a deep, deep dive into maybe redirecting what we as parents thought was good. Maybe we can relook, reset, and allow our kids to live their own lives just with some guidance instead of control. Our guest this morning is Julie Lythcott-Haims. Stay on point, everybody. We're back right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to the OPT Network. Our guest this morning is New York Times bestselling author Julie Lythcott-Haims, and we're talking about her new book, How to Be an Adult. It is a deep, deep conversation. And during the break, Julie, I was asking you if we as parents have missed it. Have we misunderstood our roles as parents?
I think we have, and I'll remind you and your listeners that I'm a parent too, and so I'm not here pointing fingers. I'm here with a lot of empathy, and yet clarity. We have missed it lately since the mid 80s, resulting in the childhoods of the millennials and then Gen Zs. We parents have been caught up in perfecting our kids every moment, watching out constantly, being totally up on what they're doing, almost putting ourselves in the driver's seat of their lives permanently. We've forgotten that our job as parents is to put ourselves out of a job. Like any mammal parent, we get to have our offspring with us for the necessary amount of time so that they can develop skills and be kept safe until they can keep themselves safe. That's what a dog mom does, parent. That's what an elephant mom does. That's what people are supposed to do. And yet we've decided somehow that the marker of a good parent is to micromanage our children, always be on top of everything. We've forgotten that we're supposed to build skills and delight in them getting more and more independent. We've lost our way. Sometimes when I give a keynote on this subject, I get to spend an hour with an audience and then do Q&A. I'll say, when people say, what do I need to do differently? My shorthand is get a life, and maybe your kid can get one too. Because we parents, right, where has all the delight and joy in adult life gone? We're not spending time with our spouses and partners. We're not going to the opening of the art gallery. We're not going to the baseball game. This is outside of a pandemic, of course. But the point is, this is what the typical parent says today. If their friends who don't have children say, oh, you want to come to the ball game with us on Thursday? They'll say, oh, no, we can't. We have a midterm. And my response is, you don't have a midterm. It's your kid's midterm, right? You've taken algebra. It's their turn. What do you think you're going to do, right? It's on them to develop the study habits and to try hard and to get the feedback and to try again, right? You've had your childhood. live your own vibrant adult life.
Mm-hmm.
Make kids aspire to be adults because they see the adults hanging out with other adults, having fun, taking on responsibilities, getting better and better. Like, we're supposed to be the role models for so much. Instead, we're just these hovering, worrying micromanagers trying to make sure our kid doesn't forget their homework or gets an A, or we rescue them by coming to school with their football helmet. We've traded our life for theirs in a way that harms us both.
Mm-hmm. And I think it harms us in a way that we don't even really see until our kids graduate from high school and go off to college, where now parents have centered, and I've talked to many, many parents that have said these kids are our life.
Yeah.
They are our life. And so all of their activities, all of the scheduling, everything has centered around the children. And once the children are gone, you don't even know each other. You don't even know your spouse anymore, because your whole life has been enmeshed with the kids' activities, the kids' friends, the kids. And I think that we really have to have this conversation seriously, where we don't just look at all of these things that we're doing, but we look at how to change them. And I had said to one of my friends, her son was not doing well in school. And I said, well, when you think about the worst thing that could happen, what's the worst thing that could happen? That he fails the 6th grade. Well, that's not going to happen, because she was going to fly in, and I'm guilty of it too. I was guilty of it too. And in this second act, I'm trying to get better. We were going to fly in and do whatever it was for success. But now you fast forward, and when the kids are supposed to be launching into the next things, we haven't given them the skill set to acquire the responsibility to do that. So how do we stop?
The whole parable in the Bible, you got to teach a man to fish, not give a man a fish. For those of us who have a religious practice, that's a place to return to, just for a visual reminder of how a human ultimately can look after themselves. I mean, let me be super blunt. We're going to be dead and gone one day. Mm-hmm. If things work out the way they are supposed to, we will go first. It's a tragedy if our children predecease us. So the normal course of things is such that we'll be gone one day. And we need to know deep in our bones and up through our spirit that my child has got it, mm-hmm. that they will be just fine when I'm not there. So if their entire childhoods and into their adulthood has been us checking in, checking up, handling, fixing, managing, bringing, rescuing, arguing for them, it looks loving, but we are infantilizing them. We are raising young people who emerge like veal, like a veal calf, which is lovely, but then gets led to slaughter. Why are we doing this to our precious sons and daughters? Why? Well, I think we lack a sense of purpose in other ways. Anyone who says my child is my everything, you want to say, like, I think you mean well, but it's actually psychologically harmful for the child to feel that they are your everything. They look into your face and they see your worry and your stress over their grades, and they just have this fear. Where do you think all this anxiety in children is coming from? It's coming in part from the fact that the looks on our faces are, did you do your homework yet? Have you done your homework? When are you going to do your homework? Did you get an A? Right? We are stressing them out because of our need for them to be perfect. And to the point about relationships, if I may just say, because you and I were talking about me and my partner, Dan, we're incredibly close, been together for 33 years. And when you were talking about how when the kids leave and it's the empty nest, so many parents are bereft. They don't know each other anymore. I want to say 3 things. The kids, we've made the kids our entire life, and that harms them psychologically. I've also already mentioned that. Second, we have failed to role model for our children what a healthy adult relationship looks like, that adults take time away from children to focus on the relationship. We have failed to role model that for them. And If we haven't done that work to focus on our marriage, to show our children that we matter so much to each other, we're not likely to stay together, or we're not likely to offer a home environment that is really, really emotionally healthy. And so we got to do it. We got to care about our marriage, our primary partnerships, for our own sake, but also for the sake of making this environment in which our kids are growing up in a healthy one that models for them adult relationships.
Absolutely. I want to take a break here, Julie, but when we come back, I want to talk about the idea of our kids being on the right track. And before we go to break, I just want to say this to parents and people who are raising children, that this is not about condemnation. This is about us getting better, taking a deeper look at how we're really raising children. And are we doing what we need to do to equip them for life and life's challenges? That's the question. Stay on point. We're back with hopefully some of those answers right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to the OPT Network. This morning, we're talking about a new book that I think every parent, whether you are in the second half of raising grandchildren, or you're fostering, you're going to be raising kids, or you're just in the middle, I think that this is a book that you have to put your eye gates on. It's entitled Your Turn: How to Be an Adult. And I think, Julie, that we wanted and we want so much for our kids to do well, that we want them to do well at all cost, and at the cost of them not knowing themselves. And one of the things that you write about in the book, and you talked about it a little bit in the last segment, is that now when we see our kids, we can't greet them with the warmth of, I haven't seen you all day, how was your day? It's almost an inquisition. And it's almost like we can't love our kids unconditionally. We can only love them if they're high achievers. And so with that said, you write about the right track, and you say it's really BS. Talk about that.
Yeah. I first want to say we all yearn to be loved unconditionally. You do, I do, everybody listening wants that. And when we assault our kids with those questions when they get home from school, have you done your work? When are you going to do your work? What happened on the science test? It does make them feel that they are loved conditionally. They are loved when they do what is right in our eyes. And how many of us are in therapy trying to get over the fact that our parents might have instilled that mindset in us? The right track is BS. So many kids have been raised with that. You got to be on the right track. And of course, the right track is, in most people's minds, one of 5 professions: medicine, law, business or finance, engineering, and sort of entrepreneurial, go into business. Okay. And I'm here to tell you, as a former dean at a fancy school, there is no such thing as the right track. There are myriad other careers, professions, ways of being in the world around work that aren't these 5 things. Okay. And I'm also here to tell you, as a former corporate lawyer, I went to law school to help humans. I now know as a 53-year-old, I was so insecure as a young 25-year-old Black woman. I was at law school, went to go be a public interest lawyer, be a civil rights lawyer. I was so insecure in myself in those years around my Blackness that I graduated law school and needed to prove to the white folks that I had made it, that I was worthy of a corporate law offer, which were seen as prestigious because they came with lots of money. And so despite going to law school to be of use to humans who are struggling and needed an advocate, I left law school with an offer for a job that would pay me a lot, but it had nothing to do with helping humans. And I did that work, and I was good at it, and I was being mentored and given opportunity and paid very well. And it was sucking the life out of me one day at a time. And I left because I realized it's not enough to be good at something. The right track, quote unquote, concept is often like, this is the right thing people think, and you might even be good at it, law, business, med. If you don't also love it, it will eat you alive. Now, the flip side is also problematic. If you just love the thing you're pursuing, but have no aptitude for it, and you try and you try and you're not getting a whole lot better, you're not going to earn a meaningful living at it. So let it be a hobby. The sweet spot of work, though, that is a much better track, that is the right track in my sense of the word, the choice you should make is at the intersection of what am I good at and what do I love? Let me find work that is at that hinge. I mean, as long as it pays your bills, it will be intrinsically rewarding, which will fill you up even more, so much more than whatever money you make from it does. And that's what I'm urging folks to do in this book.
Well, I think one of the key components, and in my first round of parenting, is helping our kids to find purpose and find their purpose, not our purpose, not, like you said, those things that we have crafted out, that if you do these things or if you go into this profession, that you will be successful. Because I had chosen the profession for our son. He was going to be an engineer, but I didn't bother to check with him to see what he wanted to do. And most parents don't. We set our expectation on getting a good job, getting a job that sounds prestigious, that is everything that is good in society. And so I think that when we set all of these expectations and we plan our kids' lives out, then they're filled with anxiety. We're looking at mental health issues now more than we ever have, and we're not serving them. And so how in your years of leading students that were high achieving students, do you help them to find what it is that they're passionate about, and how can they take that passion and monetize it?
Yeah. Just so you know, I've been there too with my own kids. Do not feel bad. Carlette, do not feel bad, listeners. I have that mom who cut my son's meat when he was 10, and that's too late to be cutting meat. I was probably tying his shoes too long, and I was also really excited about what he was going to study and become. I was ready for that Nobel Prize in genetics because my son is a science genius, and I think I was really sort of pushing and not seeing the struggles that he was having around. So I've been there. I'm wading in those waters, repatterning stuff in our relationship with him as we speak, trying to see that kid for who he is instead of loving the kid I wished he was. How many of us are falling into that trap? So when it comes to instilling purpose, here's what I look for, or here's what I would say in conversation with a young person who's like, I don't know what I'm interested in. I don't know what my purpose is. I would say, yeah, first of all, that's normal. That's fine. Don't let them make you think you got to have your purpose in life figured out by the time you're senior in high school applying to college, because some college wants to know your passion or your purpose. It takes time. Few of us know in childhood what our passion or our purpose is. And I use these words interchangeably: passion, purpose, path. Okay. This is what I think of as the rudder. It's like you're in a boat and the rudder is what steers you. No matter what way the wind is blowing, the rudder is going to steer your direction. That's what purpose is. It's your answer to the question, why are you doing this work? Well, because my purpose or my passion, I love is another way to say it, is this. So how to find it? I would ask young people, what are you willing to stay up all night talking about? What's that topic that just delights or concerns you so much that you just, no matter what, you'll just stay up all night? It really gets at you. It's in your bones. I love this stuff. There's this concern, this set of people who need my help, this way of being in the world. I love fixing things. I love research. I love using my hands. I love idea. There's no right way to even think about this. The point is just to be asking the self, what lights me up? What would I do if it was only up to me and nobody was going to laugh or scoff or scold? So many small business owners feel like, well, I'd really just love to open a shop, but everyone's telling them, oh, you're too smart for that. You should. And in my work and in this book, I'm saying, forget them. They do not know who you are. You are a gift of God and the universe. And your parents are trying to provide you with warmth and love and food and shelter, but you know deep within you what you're good at and what you love, and listen for that voice and let it direct you and stop worrying so much about what everyone else is doing or what everyone else thinks is valuable. That's one of the central messages of my book. And in other words, one's purpose is not to please others. One's purpose is not to get a job that pays X. Okay. Success is not making the most money. In fact, some of those high paying jobs are so high paying because they're miserable and they have to pay you that much in order for you to do it. You know, so many folks in my world at Stanford wanted to teach. They wanted to be third grade teachers. They wanted to be seventh grade teachers. And they were told, oh, you're too smart for that. You should be a professor. Well, no, if you know that your jam is helping young people come forth through a particular subject that is taught in elementary, middle, or high school, don't let anybody tell you that that's not a completely valid choice, even if you're not going to get rich. Are you here to get rich, or are you here to feel meaning and purpose in your life? That's what I'm rooting for in this book.
There you go. Hey, everybody, stay on point. We're back with more right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to the OPT Network. Our guest this morning is Julie Lythcott-Haims, and we're talking about her incredible book. I think it's a book, and I'm going to say it, Julie, as many times as I can, and I'm not getting paid to say it. I'm saying it just because it's true. I think that every parent should pick this book up and not just read through it quickly, but just read through the book and find where you are as a parent and just stop. And, you know, this year in the pandemic, Julie, we've talked a lot about resetting, about repurposing, whether it's your business or whatever it was that you lost and you had to look at another way. I think that parenting has to be looked at and we have to reset again. The book is entitled Your Turn, How to Be an Adult. And you formatted the book with a lot of stories. And I think that there are enough stories in the book that everybody can really find part of their life or part of their life's experience in these stories. Why did you make the decision to craft the book the way that you did?
Thanks for asking that. I appreciate it. I'm not an authority on adulting, number one. Who is? I mean, either we all are or none of us is, right? But I've written this book. And so I didn't want to be this sort of guru, sage, wise person from on high with all the answers. I'm not. I'm just older. I've lived a lot of life. I have a lot of opinions. But in a sense, having known a lot of humans about, what makes the way forward easier, more pleasant, more pleasurable, what makes it difficult. So I've tried to offer advice and guidance from a place of my own lived experience, bringing humility and vulnerability. But I also thought, you know what, Julie, you've had one life, and let's bring other people into these pages so readers can meet the young man who grew up in Appalachia with a mother addicted to opioids, and the young woman whose parents are immigrants from the Ukraine.
But let's stop there and let's start with him, because I thought that was an incredible story where the father had died.
Right.
And the mother became addicted. And then immediately at maybe 12 years old or somewhere thereabouts, he is thrust into manhood. He is thrust into taking care of the family. And how many times is that not happening? Maybe not because the father died, but maybe because there is no father. You know what I'm saying? And he's been bestowed these responsibilities that he shouldn't have to have as barely a teenager.
Yeah. He had his childhood robbed from him by life circumstance, and that does happen. And it happens to some communities in greater proportion than others. And I put stories like his on the page so that readers could hear what taking personal responsibility sounds like, the delight and joy he feels in bettering his life and making things. When he finally decides to go off to college and leave his little sister behind, he feels badly, but he's also clear, I need to do this to make our lives better. And you can hear in his sense of self, his competence, his confidence, his dedication to bettering his life and that of his family. And there are plenty of readers who've had more privilege than that. But I want them to hear what this person who they may think of as marginalized, underserved, at risk, he's got a tray in his toolkit because life grew him up already. I want people to hear what that sounds like. There's another person who's in it, told you got to be up or out at 18, and he's renting his first apartment, paid for with his own wages, and he feels this satisfaction staring at the ceiling like, this is my place. I'm taking care of business, and it feels good. These stories come from folks from all walks of life: Black, Latino, Asian, white, Native, queer and straight, all genders, poor, working class, middle class, upper middle class, wealthy, hardly educated, highly educated, people with mental health situations, people who were adopted, raised in foster care, people raised by their biological parents. I'm trying to put the human condition on the page and say, look how much we can learn from each other. Folks are walking different paths, and yet, and this is the real subversive point of the book, look at how much we have in common. Mm-hmm. Okay, I have written this in 2020, and I was working on it for years before, but this is a book that says if we want all lives to matter, then we must put all lives into the pages of nonfiction books, like a book on adulting. So I hope that every reader, as you said when you began to ask me this, I hope every reader will have cause to say to themselves at some point in this book, she had folks like me in mind when she wrote this paragraph, this page, this chapter.
And you know what? It could have been really easy, Julie, coming from the background of Stanford and being a part of that culture and having gone to Harvard. It would have been easy just to choose stories from that world, but you chose every story. Everybody can identify with the story. And so you were pregnant with this work, metaphorically pregnant with this work for a very long time. Once it comes to fruition, how cathartic is that for you?
It's cathartic. It's wonderful. It does feel like having a baby in some ways. I call this one my big bouncing baby boy because it's so large. But there's also it's done. The minute I'm done editing it, it's done. It takes months to produce it into a book. It's already in the past tense. So as a writer, there's that sense of, oh, I should have done this differently. Oh, you can't change it. It's a book. It's not a website you can just change. It exists. It's done. Tremendous satisfaction. Look, I'm trying to be of use, Carlette. I'm a human who wants to be of use to my fellow humans. I'm trying to serve. And my hope for this book is that it will find its intended readers, the readers who need it, the readers who need to feel supported and rooted for as they struggle out in the adult world, trying to figure out their way, their purpose, their path, trying to find relationships, trying to succeed. I'm just rooting for them. And I hope this book helps.
It will help. And you know what? I believe that God doesn't make any mistakes, and it's put out into the universe, and it is for all to partake and just look at where we are on this path called life. We can stop, we can reset, and we can help our kids to reset, and we can love them right where they are. Before you've got to go, Julie, tell people about all of the amazing resources that you have available, your website. And most importantly, you got some incredible TED Talks that millions of people have viewed. How can people connect with that and get the book?
Thank you. My website's the best place to go to. It's julielythcott-haims.com. That's my name without the hyphen.com. Julie Lythcott-Haims. You can find my TED Talk there, learn about my 3 books there, follow where I'm going to be. If you're interested in hearing more about this, I am on my book tour right now. And I've got, of course, it's all virtual, but I've got a little tour card you can look at and maybe check out an event here or there. I'm also on social. I'm J. Lythcott-Haims wherever you are, except I'm not yet on TikTok. I think I'm too old for TikTok, but I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook at J. Lythcott-Haims. Also on Clubhouse if you have found your way to Clubhouse. So please do follow my work if you're interested. I do love to engage folks around their questions. I'm in this with you. I'm trying to just support all of us as I learn and grow myself. So I'd love to hear from you if you're interested in having that conversation with me.
There you go. Julie, thank you so much for taking the time. May this be another New York Times bestseller, and may it go out into the world and change all of our lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody, stay on point. We're back with more right after this.